Welcome, Tia. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss 7 Days in June.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Moms
Um,
don't have time to read books.
Moms don't have time. I know. Barely had time for this one. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Um, um, why don't you start by telling listeners a little bit about what this book is about and what inspired you to write it, and then we can dive into some of the details.
Okay. So this book, it's called 7 Days in June, and it's about two famous authors who randomly meet at a Brooklyn Museum literary function, and sparks immediately fly. But unbeknownst to everyone there, they're not strangers. They had a 7 day romance, very torrid, very dramatic in high school. And then they went their separate ways and never spoke again. But over the past 15 years, they've been secretly communicating with each other through their books. Um, and I just love a second chance love trope. It's like one of my favorite things. And I've never written one. And I just love the idea of this sort of, love that was so important to you that it's become mythological almost in your mind, and then to be confronted again. I think we all ask that question, like, what would you do if the one who got away came back? So that's really where it came from. Actually, to tell you the absolute truth, I was watching Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo and Claire Danes, and I just had this thought. What if Romeo and Juliet hadn't died? Like, what if they, went their separate ways and had, became totally well-functioning adults, with therapy and 401ks and everything, and met each other in their 30s. Like, would it still be there? Do soulmates have an expiration date? We don't know.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I feel like there are some relationships you just can't shake, right? They kind of get in there, and I don't know.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, well, I mean, there's no, sounds like a great, why not explore this age-old question, right? That nobody quite knows the answer to. It's amazing. One of the things I really loved about this book was how to deal with pain, right? The migraines that the mom had, and how you deal with pain while you are raising your child, and how to function in a world where you don't want your pain to be acknowledged or known throughout, and sort of having to hide. And you had this one quote, what was it like, the luxury of not hurting? And I know you've written about migraines yourself, so I just wanted to talk to you about that plot line.
Yeah, so Eva, like you said, she lives with a chronic disability, and it's an invisible disability, chronic migraines. And I too have had chronic migraines since I was 9 years old. And mine are intractable, which basically means they're not curable. Like, they can't figure out why I have them, and I just have to live with it. Um, and yeah, it's something I've wanted to address in fiction for a while, but it's so painful to me. I never felt brave enough to go there. And I also, you know, like to keep a little bit of, I like to keep humor in my stories and a little bit of lightness with the darkness. And I didn't know how to make this funny. Um, because yeah, I've always wondered what it's like to be normal. I look at my friends, I look at, strangers on the train, and I'm just like, oh, look at them just living their pain-free lives. Of course, you can never know what's going on in people's minds, but just things that other people take for granted, um, running more than one block, laughing too loud, sneezing, coughing, um, drinking. I can't have one drink of anything without, landing in the ER the next morning. There's a lot. It was especially hard when I was a kid because I couldn't really play. So I was always inside reading and writing, which brings us here. But yeah, Eva feels like she's an alien. Like, she's not, like, she's a dysfunctional human being, like, she sees the world upside down. Everyone sees it right side up. because when you're operating through this veil of pain, you have to get through an extra layer of struggle to get to the normal place where everyone else is. So, in order to act like everyone else paying attention in a meeting at work, there's so much you have to get through to get there. There might be 2 rounds of pills the half hour before the meeting. You might be pinching your thigh during the meeting to stay awake because the pills have made you so zonked out. Someone may ask you a question and you pause for 5 mortifying seconds because you can't get your brain to work. Yeah, it sucks, and I haven't read a lot about, I haven't read a lot of fiction, fun fiction about, a protagonist that suffers with a chronic disease.
I'm so sorry that that's something you've had to deal with your whole life. You've seen like every doctor, right? Because now, of course, my instinct is to be like, let me
Right.
try to find you a different doctor. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? I'm
I've
sure you've
seen
had
them
everything done.
all. And the funny thing, well, it's not funny, but like after a while, when they see that nothing they are doing is working, they get angry with me and dump
What?
me. Oh, I've been dumped like in aggressive ways. Well, you're not responding to anything. I don't, I there's some issue that isn't being addressed here, and I've run every test, and you're just incorrigible. This pain just is just so frustrating. It's like, the doctors take it personally because it stumps them. And then it's always, I don't think we can treat you anymore. You have to find someone else.
What? Well,
Yeah.
um, well, if you ever want to try again, I am on the board of Mount Sinai Hospital. So if you want to try with a new team or
Oh,
something,
I've done Montefiore.
Mount Sinai, Mount
Oh,
Sinai.
Mount Sinai. Okay. All right. I don't know if I've been to my Mount Sinai. I
All
might
right.
look
Well,
it up.
I'm sure there's nothing more, but I feel like I have to try to help you to like get out of this. I love that you put it in fiction and the way that you addressed it, and there was humor even throughout the pain. So I feel like
Yeah.
that difficulty was achieved. In the way that you were in bed and the laying over, and but the sad part was how Eva, and I don't know if this happened to you or whatever, but how she felt like her pain made her feel so unattractive, and
Yes.
how she didn't want to open up to men because, like, who wants to date her? I think there was some line like, well, who wants to date someone so ugly? And like her first guy left her, and like, how do you get
Mhm.
over that? Tell me about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's come into it's like the third, Princess Diana is like, well, there was 3 of us in the relationship. Like like migraines are my Camilla. Like they're the third person in all of my relationships because it's, we make plans. I may not be able to go, or I may have to go home early. I might have to disappoint your parents because I can't show up for that dinner, or, you know, if I have an episode and it changes your plans. It changes what you wanted to do for the day. And the way in my diaries when I'm a teenager, like I write about pain like it's a gargoyle sitting on my head or sitting on my shoulder all the time. And it's ugly. Like feeling bad is ugly. It's hard to feel like attractive and sparkly when you didn't sleep the night before because you were having suicide dreams. Like it's that, I feel like I'm gonna cry. It's that tough. It's hard to feel attractive. Um, I remember being on a first date once, and we were at some restaurant on the Lower East Side, and I remember focusing in on my California roll, like with everything I had, because if I hadn't, I knew I was going to throw up. I don't remember anything this idiot said. I'm just like staring at my California roll, like hoping that it keeps me together, you know. And yeah, that's one of those things where you're just like, God, I just wish I were normal. But no one's normal. Everyone has something. But yeah, it's the things that people take for granted, that I have to, and Eva has to fight through. It's hard. So yeah,
And
you feel ugly.
I'm sorry. And it's so crazy because I'm looking at you're obviously like gorgeous and your whole
Thank you.
career has been in beauty. I mean, or for
Yeah,
a long time. Which I don't know, maybe Freud would have something to say about that,
I think so. I think definitely it's no accident. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, and I'm sure there are groups and stuff. I feel like I'm sorry. I feel like I keep trying to take care of you like you're a
No,
close friend or somebody, but anyway, there are probably other people who are in your situation who,
there are.
because I hate the fact that you were embarrassed to even write about it. When
Yeah.
it's something that's such a part of you and there's no shame. You didn't do it to yourself. Like most people with chronic pain, like this is nothing you did.
Right. I know. It's just most people don't understand it. And it's the other thing of like everyone's had a headache here and there, like if they haven't had their coffee yet or if they're hungover. And so you tell people you have migraines and they're like, oh, yeah, I have had one before. Or, do you want a Tylenol? I have some Advil. And it's like, I have oxycodone in my. In my bag. Granted, this is the early 2000s when that was happening. They're not allowed to prescribe it to me anymore. But it's like people don't get it. They just think you're tired or stressed or dramatic because you're not bleeding, you're not limping, you're not in a wheelchair, you don't have crutches, you don't have this outward facing, you know disability or illness. So it's really hard to believe, and I've had people close to me not believe it. And so I don't, it's a hard thing to share. And also people look at me and they're like, what kind of problems could you have? Um, and so I keep it to myself, or I've always made up lies about why I have to skip out on something or go home early or not drink or um you know can't go to a concert, things like that, because it's just easier than saying, oh, my head hurts. It also sounds like you're complaining. So
I mean, I do those things all the time too, and I don't even have an excuse. I go home early. I like, yeah, like, um,
I'm
well,
out, bye. What's it called, an Irish goodbye, when you just
yeah,
sort of slip out without saying goodbye to anyone.
totally. Oh my gosh. Um, well, tell me then about your love of reading as a child. I love how you were saying you wrote somewhere that you wish that there had been some sort of Black Scarlet O'Hara, or that none of the
Oh yeah.
characters you were reading felt like you, and yet you were just diving into book after book, and that inspired you in part to want to write fiction the way that you sort of see the world. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a voracious reader, and always reading age inappropriate books. So like, I was in third grade, literally had ingested the entire Judith Krantz and Jackie Collins canon,
I was like that too.
like
I read
all of
Judith
them.
Krantz, Princess Daisy. I was like, I
Oh,
like,
Mistral's Daughter.
oh my gosh. I like went into my mom's like section and I was just like, do, 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 do.
Oh, absolutely. All those. Oh, so good. And then BC Andrews and all those, and I was also a massive film buff. My parents are, so we were always watching old Hollywood movies. And obviously, unless you're looking for a maid or a slave, there aren't Black people in any, you know 30s 40s movies. And so what I did when I would watch these movies and read the books that I was reading, I would recast it in my mind as Black people. And I mean, this is totally screwed up, but I would watch Gone with the Wind, which is one of the most racist movies ever put out by Hollywood, by the way. And I would recast them as Black people, which is insane to think that Scarlett O'Hara, like, what? Um, it's just nuts. But yeah, I wanted to read big dramatic love stories about glamorous women, like Billy Eichhorn in Scruples, and or a Jude Devereaux heroine or Nora Roberts. And there weren't any books starring me in any of those scenarios. And then when I moved to New York in 97, right after college, to work in fashion magazines, So I was a beauty editor. I worked at Elle and Glamour and Lucky and Teen People and Essence, all over the place. And I saw Black women and men living those lives, you know, in these books that I would read that were cast completely with white people. And I was like, why don't we write about the Black gallery owner or the Black artist, the Black writer, you know, the Black financer, the financer,
Yeah.
Wall Street
Financier.
dude, bro.
Financier.
You know, like we're everything, we're all things. And then we only see, you know, the media so often, especially when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, like we were always symbols of oppression, which is so dehumanizing. And it's also centering whiteness. It's like, what are Black people in relation to white people? And we are so much more than the injustices put upon us by white people and white lawmakers. We are our own thing. And so I've always been driven to sort of write these big iconic stories and make Blackness, you know, turn it into some sort of iconography, because I didn't have that and I was missing that. And God knows I don't want any other little girls, first of all, to watch Gone with the Wind, but second of all, to try to, to cast in their mind a Black woman in Atlanta running a plantation and owning enslaved Black people. So, I mean, that is the most insane thing ever. And then also growing up thinking that, you know, Black people are, or wanting Black people to inhabit a space where it's like, this is the Black version of this white thing. This is the Black version of a Jackie Collins book. No, we're not the Black versions of anything. We're ourselves. And we're funny and we have sex and we're dorky, we're boring. We're, you know, we're scientists, we're architects, we're, you know, construction workers, we're everything. I'm tired of seeing us just one way.
Wow. Well, you have this quote in the book about Eva not wanting to be on this panel because she said she's woke recreationally, not professionally. And she thought that she was in, in too deep with the panel she was assigned to.
Yes. Well, I feel like that sometimes because I have friends that write, you know, books about that are like deconstructing race in America, or like, you know, these like really intense racial, you know, discourse. And I write fun books about love and sex. And sometimes I'm asked to comment on these things, and I'm like, ask my friend. I don't know. Like, yes, I feel all these things very deeply, but like, you know, around my dinner table, like it's a whole different skill set to get up in front of people and articulate these things in a way that, you know, it's a true skill, because you also can't, if you come out the gate offending people, they're not going to learn anything. So like there's a delicateness that you have to have. You have to be succinct and get the point across quickly, because if you belabor it, you might make the audience feel bad, you know, and then they turn on you. It's a whole thing. And hats off to my friends that sort of, yeah, are woke professionally, while I get to stand in the shadows and applaud them, you know, silently.
Although it's funny, I'm interviewing Naima Coster, like literally right after this, and
Oh,
she
wow.
she wrote in one essay that she feels bad because in her work she doesn't celebrate like what you do. Like she's like, I
Right.
don't have enough like Black joy and love, and mine is too dark, and so I just feel like there's
Yeah.
no prescribed path. Like everyone's just trying to help.
It's so true. And honestly, they're two different sides of the same coin, because what I'm doing is just as revolutionary as what she's doing, because no one believed in Black joy 10 years ago. You know, when I was selling books at the beginning of my career, it was like, okay, but can we talk more about how your main character is struggling being a Black woman in the fashion industry? Or like there was always they wanted some angle about oppression. It's like trauma porn. You couldn't just exist in a fun story for the sake of being there. Um, So yeah, I think spotlighting our humanity in this way is just as important and just as eye-opening as the other side of it.
And how has your so you've written several novels already. How
Mhm.
have you like well, first of all, how have you seen your sort of the topics of the novels evolve? And do you share any of Eve's sort of self-doubt and all of that about her products and
Yeah,
topics and the time between books and all of that?
absolutely. I mean, I don't know any writer who, after they're finished writing a book, is like, you know what, this is going to change lives. This is beautiful. No one has ever said this way. I think it's the opposite. You're like, I am hackneyed. I'm a cliche. This has been done a million times and so much better. I don't think you ever feel secure about what you're doing. But I published my first novel when I was 25. I'm 45 now. And the difference between then and now, it's so insane. I mean, I was so insecure about every word. And I also really weighed everything I said. It was like, are people going to get this? Like, is everyone going to understand this reference? Maybe not. I should rewrite it to make it more palatable or, you know, less niche of a reference. Or, you know, maybe I shouldn't, when I was writing dialogue, my first instinct is to write exactly how Black people would speak to each other. And then I'd be like, but not everyone's going to know that word. So let me just dial that back a little bit, um, which is ridiculous, but it was also the vibe in the early 2000s. It's like, you better appeal to everybody, or else you're completely ghettoized, and we're only going to market your book to certain demos, and we're only going to sell it to certain bookstores. Um, it was even a thing when we were talking about book covers, like how quote unquote Black do you want to be with your book cover is nuts. But then you fast forward to today, and I think that, the industry and the is more open and interested in Black voices and what we have to say, um, which is an interesting moment to be a part of. I have never in my life seen such a um, what do I want to say? Such a hunger from book publishers to get Black voices, to land the new Black author. I mean, it's almost like a race to get to get the new happening Black author, which is something I never thought I would see. Um, but anyway, back to being insecure at 25 and versus now. I don't know, something happens when you get over 40. You're just like, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Honestly, if you don't get it, the Google is available to you. Um, and I just write whatever I feel like writing. I write to tickle myself, and and that's about it. I'm not trying to please anyone anymore. And I think any woman over 40 knows what I'm talking about. Honestly, it's like you hit that birthday and you're like, liberation, freedom.
I'm 44 and I literally like half the time I'm like, why do I do this? I don't know. Like it makes me laugh. Like I'm cracking
Yes.
myself or like I'm writing this and it's like cracking me up and like maybe nobody else is gonna find this remotely funny, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm chuckling myself, so whatever.
Yes, and that's good enough,
And that's good
honestly.
enough. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you can't entertain yourself.
Then what are we even doing? Especially during a pandemic, you have to be, find yourself entertaining. Because what else are we doing?
So are you working on a new novel now?
I am.
What is that about it? Can you
I
say?
am. But I haven't even told my editor, so I don't know if I can say. But this one is going to be a historical fiction,
Ooh.
very loosely related to a character in 7 Days in June.
Oh, wonder which one. Okay.
Yes.
I'm nominating Cece. I liked her.
She's so fun.
She's really fun.
I just Yeah, she was a really fun character to write. I love to make the supporting characters. Um, I always feel like they're the star in their own book and they just like wandered over to this one to like give us some one-liners. I had a writing professor once tell me that supporting characters don't know that they're not the protagonists, and villains don't know that they're evil. So you have to give all of them like a fully fleshed out backstory, no matter how many pages, they inhabit. They have to come on into your book fully fleshed out.
Hmm. I love that. It reminds me of like 1980s sitcoms, when like someone from All in the Family would head over to the set of The Jeffersons or something, and you'd be like, "Wow, how did that happen?" Those are always my
Oh my,
favorites. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yep.
those crossover episodes, I
Yeah.
lived for them. Yeah, those were so good.
Well, you've just given like so much advice. What is your final advice for aspiring authors? Like, what do you think is most important especially for people starting out?
Um, wow. First of all, they're lucky because the landscape today is so much different than it used to be. And there's so many different platforms, where you can express yourself. When I was coming up, it was like either you're published in a magazine or or you get your book published. Now you can self-publish, you can write on Medium, you can have a blog, there's so many ways to get your work out there. Um, I think my biggest piece of advice is honestly, it's so boring, but you've got to carve out time every day to do it because there's always something more fun to do than write. There will always be something you would rather be doing every single time. So if you make it a part of your schedule, if you make it as crucial as eating lunch or finishing that project at work, just because it's something that you're doing for yourself doesn't mean that it should take less precedent over, work that you're doing for other people. Um, you just have to approach it like a non-negotiable.
I love that. Excellent. Um, well, Tia, thank you. Thanks for chatting. I wish we had like more time to hang and talk and whatever, but and to talk more about this book. But thank you so much for coming on Moms No Time to Read Books, and I can't wait for your next novel. And now I have to go back and read the other one. So anyway, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Zibby. Thank you for having me on. It was so fun.
And if you change your mind and want to try a different doctor or something, just email me. I'm not even kidding.
I will reach out.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.